morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio. So today, we're here to talk about Maxies. And I'm going to tell you right now that in the expanded format, Maxies is going to be banned. Not I think it's going to be banned, not it might be banned, not I'm predicting it's going to be banned. It is going to be banned. Now, to be fair, I don't know that for 100% certainty. There hasn't been an announcement, and I don't have any insider information. I don't care. It is going to be banned. Now, over in Japan, this was announced this weekend. It was announced that in their black and white on format, it is banned. Cool. We know that for a fact. Over here, it's not been banned, but remember, this is based on cards from Tag Bolt, which has just come out in Japan. So, of course, Japan is thinking about banning it now. It's a problem now. In Japan, sets become legal on the day they're released, whereas it's the third Friday of the month of release in the US, Europe, UK, etc. So the point is, this is a decision that had to be made in Japan right now. This set, Tag Bolt, or Tag Team or Team Up as it's going to be over here, that's going to be released on Friday the 1st of February. It will be legal for tournament play on Friday the 15th of February. We are currently sitting here on the 2nd of December, 3rd as you watch this video. So frankly, the decision hasn't been made yet, but it's going to. Now, Maxies, for those of you that may have forgotten, allows you, if it's the only card in your hand, to put a fighting Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench and draw 5 cards. And it doesn't need to be a basic. Now, if you're thinking, well, hang on a second, how often is that going to happen? Remember that there's a water version of this, Archie's Ace in the Hole. Remember that Archie's with Blastoise literally won the World Championships. It is going to happen just fine. It is a regular thing which you can rely on. Because in Expanded, you've got Computer Search, which will search it out while discarding 2 cards. You've got Ultra Ball, which will discard 2 cards and search yourself out a Tapu Lele, which incidentally will then search you out one of these. And let's not forget that we've got Execute. Execute, when it's in the discard pile, it allows you to bring it into your hand, so you can essentially use as many or as few discarding cards as you like. If you want to discard 1 card from your hand, pick up 1 Execute. Want to discard 2, pick up none. Want to discard none, pick up 2. Then, of course, we've got Battle Compressor, which will discard the Maxies, and it will discard whichever Pokemon you want to get, and it will discard the Execute, and we've got Versus Seeker to pick Maxies out of the discard. This works in Expanded. It stopped working in Standard even before it was rotated, but in Expanded it works. You can get this going turn 1. Now, weirdly enough, this became a problem previously with Archeops. Archeops was an issue. Because Archeops now, the ability says each player cannot play any Pokemon from his or her hand to evolve his or her Pokemon. The thing was, Archeops had the super awkward fossil mechanic, which meant that it basically was super awkward to get in play, and even if you could get it working, the chances of getting it working turn 2 were not great. And then you had to do this consistently. Nah. Not an issue, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for anyone that can't remember, what you would basically do is use Plume Fossil, and if there was an Archer in the bottom 7 cards of your deck, you could put it on your bench, and then you could evolve it up into Archeops. Incidentally, it wasn't just Archies that could do this. You could do this with Wally. If you could get a Plume Fossil working turn 1, you could then Wally into an Archeops on the first turn of the game. And Archeops got banned, because Pokemon basically said, right, you know what, this isn't good enough. This stops people playing the game. If people are playing evolution decks, as soon as an Archeops hits the field, they're out. Now, you can try and stop your opponent, you can Guzma and take out Pokemon before they evolve, etc. But Maxies means that you don't get that choice anymore. They banned Archeops. They could have banned Maxies. They chose to ban Archeops. Because the thing is, Maxies was also really good for using Pokemon like Gallade, which saw a lot of play. I mean, Evil Tau decks used Gallade for a long time. So actually, this worked out quite nicely. And between the ban of Archeops and now, Maxie's hasn't been a problem. So what's changed? Well, what's changed we've just in Tag Bolt, team up as it will be over here, had revealed and released Kabutops and Omastar. They're both fighting Pokemon. They both work with Maxies, and they both fit the theme of banned cards. Pokemon have a real theme with banning cards nowadays. Does it stop your opponent playing on the very early turns of the game? If the answer is yes, down comes the ban hammer. Maxies and Archeops combine to stop your opponent ever evolving. You can do it as early as your first turn going first. Down comes the ban hammer, out goes Archeops. Wally with Trevenant. You can Wally into Trevenant turn 1 going first. Your opponent has no items for the entire game. Down comes the ban hammer. Ladies and gentlemen, Pikachu is raising up that ban hammer. And the reason is very simple. Kabutops, when it's in the active, stops your opponent playing supporter cards. Our translations for the unreleased cards, of course, come from the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And of course, if you go first, you play Maxies, you can get a turn 1 Kabutops. And it only needs to be in the active. You can use your energy attachment for the turn to retreat if you need to. So you can play stuff like Shaman and just make sure that if you start with it, you attach an energy and retreat it to get your Kabutops in the active. But because it evolves from unidentified fossil and you cannot start with unidentified fossil, you can just play a bunch of free retreaters like Tapu Koko, and then you can guarantee, literally guarantee, that whatever you start with has free retreat. So you can always retreat into Kabutops, and on your very first turn of the game, going first, you get this in the active. Your opponent has no supporters for the entire game. That means no Cynthia, etc. And look, I made this point in the Kabutops video. Yes, a whole bunch of people are playing Macargo at the moment, and a whole bunch of people are playing Orangaroo. We're playing Pokemon that allow us to get extra consistency. How many people do you know that are playing no supporters in their deck? Because even decks like Granbull, for instance, that really, really rely on Pokemon over supporters, Granbull's got to have 0 cards in hand, so you do not want supporters clogging up your hand. They tend to play 4 Apricorn Maker so that they can get all of these Pokemon out nice and early. Yeah, try doing this. Try effectively playing a Granbull deck that never plays supporters. And the hilarious thing is that the only way to make a deck without supporters is to go hyper heavy on items, at which point Garboda's like, hey. And as a side note, if you want to play Kabutops, do consider Garboda, because if they can't play supporters and if you punish them for playing items, that gets pretty funny pretty quickly. This is a huge problem. You can get turn 1 supporter lock going first. That fits the theme of the ban hammer. Now, Omastar's not actually quite so bad, although it is, make no mistake about it, an issue. Omastar's ability says that if it's on the field, does not need to be active, and you've got fewer Pokemon in play than your opponent, they cannot play item cards. Now, this is an issue for a lot of decks. It is a huge issue for a lot of decks. But actually, turn 1, it's unlikely to be an issue. If you're using Maxies to get at your Omastar, you've got to start with something. So that's 1 Pokemon in play. Even if you play 0 other Pokemon, that's no Tapu Lele to search out your Maxies, that's no Shaman to draw extra cards, you've got a minimum 2 Pokemon on the field, and it's fewer than, not fewer than or equal to, which means you don't actually get the item lock until your opponent plays their 3rd Pokemon. Kabutops in expanded with Maxies is a much bigger problem, because you can literally get it active, first turn of the game, and then your opponent has no supporters. Omastar, generally speaking, what you do is you limit your opponent's options. You make it so they cannot play a 3rd Pokemon, and then they essentially cannot run their deck with so few Pokemon, and they end up losing. Don't get me wrong, it is an issue, because like I say, either your opponent doesn't play item cards, or they basically don't play Pokemon. But Kabutops is the more turn 1, now you're locked out of the game. That led to a ban when it came to Archeops. That led to a ban when it came to Wally with Trevenant. and it will lead to a ban here. Maxie's is going to be banned. It has been banned in Japan, and the combination of Kabutops and Omastar leads to a game state where you can go first and stop your opponent ever having access to what they need to play the game properly. For that reason, I cannot see it not being banned. And I think that means Archeops gets unbanned. Archeops is a bit of an issue, but it's not some phenomenal overpowered card. Yes, it's a good card, but it's an awkward to get into play stage 2, which can be taken out before it gets going, and unless you're getting a turn 1 Archeops, you've got a couple turns to evolve up, and then when you've evolved up, you can Guzma and KO it. You can work around it, unless it's going turn 1. Well, the only ways to get around this, the only way to get the turn 1 Archeops, is either Maxie's or Wally. Wally's already banned, Maxie's is going to be banned, so when Maxie's gets banned, I expect Archeops to be unbanned, because why would it not be? Why would we need an Archeops ban in a world without Wally and a world without Maxie's? And the answer is we wouldn't. Now, in terms of Japan, Archeops has not been unbanned in Japan, but in their kind of expanded extra format, they've still got Wally. And like I've said, Wally can be a big problem with Archeops, so that explains it. I cannot say 100% absolutely, definitely certainty it's going to be banned, except I kind of already have. But seriously, I've gone through my process with you. It fits the theme of previously banned cards. It's been banned in Japan in the expanded format, and it's clearly going to be an issue. I feel extremely strongly about this, but maybe you disagree with me. In which case, you can make your argument in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WasiPlays for some more Wasi action. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.